Welcome back to another episode of Max Marquee Matchup. We are here for a tough divisional round game, Rams at Eagles. We are coming off of what was a little bit of both these teams maybe having a little bit uneven start, being able to get in control of the game and ultimately cruising into the next round during their wild card matchups as well. I'm really excited. We're introducing a new guest onto the pod for the first time. I'm happy to have him from Philadelphia Sports Network, Mr. Brian Cameron. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's Friday, which means we're a couple days closer to game day, and there's nothing better than playoff football, right? How you feeling?
Absolutely. I'm feeling good, man, especially this time of year, divisional round. Like this weekend's great. We got four good games, eight teams that are hungry trying to get to that championship Sunday. That is all important, man. So I'm looking forward to it. How the vibes are, I don't know if you're in Philadelphia specifically, but like how are the vibes you're feeling around as an Eagles fan now, getting ready for this playoff run coming off that wild card weekend game?
So I don't live in Philly, but I do cover the Eagles on game days. And I can tell you the best way to describe the vibe is on my way home after the Packers win, I was at a red light in the middle of nowhere between Jersey and Pennsylvania. I'm like, there's literally nobody around. And I know where a car pulls up, honking a horn, screaming "Go Birds!" and we're gonna take this. The vibes are great. I mean, listen, this is a team that truly defines the city. They're a gritty team. They're willing to do the dirty work to get the job done, and the vibes are high. I mean, I hate to say this, but I feel like there's no better sports city in the world, honestly.
Look, there's no question about it. Nobody is ever going to have any issues with Philadelphia sports fans talking about the passion that they have for their sports teams. And look, this team, as far as how good their defense is playing, their ability on both sides of the ball, as far as the trenches to get after you, I completely understand why you guys say that that's the identity of the city. Certainly, I got some love for Philadelphia. I am from Jersey, so I've spent some time in Philadelphia. Definitely, I can definitely feel the vibes from that perspective lining up with this team this year that look had a pretty dominant regular season, all things considered. Obviously, was able to pretty well handle the division as well every time that they came up with those rivals specifically. Obviously, even though Commanders had themselves a good season outright, you guys definitely handled them when you guys ended up playing as well. So I do ask you specifically as far as this season is concerned. Saquon Barkley being the big offseason acquisition, obviously coming over from you guys' divisional rival as far as the Giants there. And he's a local kid, obviously went to Penn State, stayed around the area. Talk to me about what he has brought specifically to the offensive dynamic. And obviously, this has been a run game that's always been really good because of your offensive line, because of the advantage that Jalen Hurts brings with his legs. But being able to add the dynamic nature of Saquon Barkley now in a history chasing S type of season from that perspective, what have you seen as far as the dynamics are concerned of adding Barkley to that offense?
It was if you're a Marvel fan, it was that moment in Avengers when like Thanos put the last gem in the gauntlet and like his whole
Uh-huh.
body's lit up. Like that's literally like the roster the moment that they added Saquon. It felt like fate. I've always felt like he deserved to be in Philadelphia. Giants, they had to pick. Obviously, they were gonna pick him, but they damn near ruined him. And when he came to Philly, the question was like, whose team is it gonna be? Like, how what's the identity? And I can say, like, we have not had a running back of his caliber since the Shady days. We had DeAndre Swift, we had Miles Sanders. They were good running backs here, but neither of them could truly take over a game or even a season the way Saquon did. This team, they go as far as Saquon goes. And I say that respectfully to Jalen because Jalen Hurts, it's put him in a perfect position where Hurts doesn't have to be a Joe Burrow. He doesn't have to throw for 300 yards. He could throw for a buck 80 and the Eagles will still win. He knows when to turn up and he knows when to turn down. And to have a quarterback that's not about the glitz and glamour of the stats, but is willing to sacrifice his own spotlight so that Saquon could do his thing and for the better part of the team so they can win. That's truly what his addition has meant. It's just meant that Jalen has gotten a little bit less off his plate. The Eagles have gotten more wins. The Eagles have gotten to the point where, at one point they were the Super Bowl favorites, throughout the season. So now it's kind of like, it's cold. It's cold in Philadelphia. It's going to snow on Sunday. And what's better
Mhm.
to have than a Saquon Barkley back there that nearly rushed for almost a record. But his addition, it was the missing piece. It was literally the final piece that this roster needed.
Yeah, look, and I'll say this, it even worked more than somebody, myself. I thought that Saquon Barkley was the most talented running back in National Football League the second that he got drafted. I truly do feel that way. The most
Mhm.
complete guy from catch the ball in the backfield, speed, power, the ability from the vision perspective as well. And he even can invent a move like a backwards hurdle like he did earlier in the season. But to
Insane.
your point, it worked to the aspect that was even beyond what people probably even comprehended as well. And I love what you talk about as far as Jalen Hurts being the consummate leader that he has been really the entirety of his football life, saying this is not about what my stats need to look like. This is about what the team's W's need to look like, point blank,
Mhm.
period. And I love to see that. Now, flipping the other side of the ball, the addition of Vic Fangio to work as far as this defense is concerned. You guys obviously had, a little bit of issues start out, but obviously it's come together really effectively. Had a breakout year by Zach Bond, who's been a really great pickup from Hire Roseman. We know about how beastly Jalen Carter is in the middle. Milton Williams has done an amazing job next to Jalen Carter. In addition to that, the secondary is codified that you guys added, obviously, DeJean to go along with Quentin Mitchell. I mean, talk about what this defense has come together and looked like now that those pieces have kind of fit together and what Vic's, overall scheme, I should say, outlook now to put those guys in the right positions to succeed.
What one thing I want to like, tip my hat off to, right? Like when Vic was signed to Philadelphia, Dolphins players came out saying kick rocks. Dolphins players came out saying, we got him out. Like great, it's great to get the old guy out, right? But when he came to Philly, you had guys like Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis saying like, we like this old school style of football. Now it could have been fluff that they were giving us at the time, right? But this is the youngest team, the youngest defensive unit in the NFL. They're the number one defensive unit in the NFL because they're buying into what Vic Fangio is selling. They know the proven track record behind him is that if you listen, you'll succeed. And Fangio, he's straightforward. There's no fluff behind it. He'll cut you straight. He'll tell you straight. And I think that discipline, that style of honesty and transparency boded well with the Eagles defense, with what Quinion mentioned with Jalen Carter, who needed that kind of figure in their life at this point in their careers because they needed the right guidance. Sean Desai wasn't that guy. He was still wet behind the ears, as a defensive coordinator. Matt Patricia, I don't that shit. I shouldn't have to say much about that.
Hmm.
I was cringing when they did that. But Vic Fangio it's a man amongst boys in this league. That's what you could say it, right? They got the guy that created the scheme that he runs, and what I'm very impressed by is that he adjusted the scheme to work to the abilities of his defenders. At first, it wasn't working. You were seeing things a little off, and you were questioning as to why they oh god, why they cut Devin White. Who the hell is Zach Bond? Um, and then you go into the season, Zach Bond is having a Luke Kuechly kind of year. Quinion Mitchell is living on the island by himself, and you have Darius Slay who's living on his own island. It's
Hmm.
just it's the product of buying, man. When you have a team that buys into what the coaches are selling, they're unbeatable. I mean, look at Kansas City, right? Andy Reid has been selling them greatness for years, and not to knock Pat Mahomes, but what is Pat without Andy? You get me? Like
Hmm.
they're a product of who their coaches are, and it just speaks volumes to who Vic Fangio is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you talked about specifically the age factor in that. Vic Fangio, because of the veteran nature of his coaching experience, and to your point, the guy that invented the system, there was nobody else that could perfectly step into the role of being able to take what is a lot of young, exciting athletic talent that you guys have and mold them properly. And it is similar to Kansas City in the sense that Spags is the older defensive coach that we have, and we charge on that side of the ball to say, hey, we're going to give you the young talent. You put them in positions to succeed and teach them accordingly. And that
Mhm.
is a formula for success when you have the coaching staff that is able to, like you said, be straightforward, teach these guys effectively, disciplined, sound football. And when they have the talent already, that's all they really need as far as the guidance and instruction is concerned. It's obviously come
Mhm.
together very well for the Eagles and their dominance. And it
Yeah.
certainly showed up in the way that they dismantled that Packers offense as far as the wild
I
card
w-
round was
I
concerned.
was blown away by that. I wasn't expecting that at all. Jordan Love, I think highly of the kid. I was
Mhm.
not expecting that at all.
Yeah, Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur. I think highly of both of them, and
Yeah.
they absolutely took it to him, to say the least. So,
Hmm.
on the flip side, of course, of this matchup is the Rams, and they've had a lot that's gone on as far as the entirety of their season, up and down. But specifically, recently having to move that game in the wild card round versus the Vikings to Arizona, given the LA wildfires and everything that's happened from that perspective as well. Even being able to block out that noise, I think this is a testament to the specific veteran nature that is a team that is battle tested at the head coach and quarterback position. Matthew Stafford obviously has been in this league a long time. Sean McVay's been in this league with a long time, which is crazy to say for how young he still is. But
Hmm.
both of those guys have seen a lot and obviously won a ring together. They know what this time of year is really built on and how to respond to those moments as well. And you saw not only that, but also the young talent as far as their defensive line was concerned, the ability to get after the Vikings and make it incredibly difficult for them on a consistent basis. This is, of course, is a totally different type of animal as far as going to Philadelphia against what is the best, offensive line in the National Football League, point blank period. The way that you guys could dominate the line of scrimmage as well. Anything you want to specifically highlight about the Rams in general before we go ahead and get into the matchups and breaking it down?
Um, they're a nasty group, right? Like Cooper Cup, he's not a scrub, right? Puka Nakua, not a scrub. Matt Stafford is definitely not a scrub, right? But it's just there's no beaches in Philly, especially this
Oh,
Sunday,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
There's no
mhm,
water out there this Sunday. It's cold, it's snow, it's rugged, and I just- I'm not trying to say that the Rams can't do their damage, but it's a different energy. I mean, I wasn't even expecting this big snowstorm that's supposed to be coming, but it's just Vic, this defense, it's just they're blowing me away week by week. It's just their discipline and their ability to counteract what the offenses bring. Um, I just can't see the Rams coming into Philly. I always tell everybody close to me, if you have to come to Philadelphia in the middle of a playoff run, you're not going out escaping there alive. Like you're not beating the Eagles in Philadelphia. It's just a different beast. That game against the Jaguars when Saquon did the backwards hurdle, I was in the
mhm,
stadium and you literally felt the whole stadium shake. Like that was like it was like being in the
mhm,
park with your boys playing basketball and you just nail a three in somebody's mouth. Like it was like, oh, like the
mhm.
whole stadium was
Yep.
shook and it should not have moved the way it did. So like just
Mhm,
imagine what it's gonna be like now.
mhm. No, absolutely. Look, it's a totally different animal going on the road in Philadelphia, cold weather, possibly snow. This is something that is going to be not just out of the element for the Rams, but the complete antithesis of what kind of their team is built on. And that specifically does pertain to what is even their best defensive advantage. They're a little bit light as far as being able to try and get after the passer from that perspective. Eagles are not light as far as their offensive line, and that
Yeah.
perspective is concerned. We are going to start though on that side of the ball with Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford going up against this Eagles defense that you spoke to. So, a big key of what you saw from Matthew Stafford and kind of Sean McVay and their ability to attack the Minnesota Vikings was a change up from what they had shown kind of earlier, really throughout the regular season. Their ability to kind of get into heavy personnel sets, specifically the use of Tyler Higbee, who we saw have a good start to the game. Obviously, went out due to injury, still expecting to play in this game moving forward. Sean McVay's offense has usually been built on using those three wide receiver sets to put defenses in a bind. Obviously, you're using being able to run into the nickel. If you guys go to base, then be able to pass out of it as well. Obviously, we know Puka is a very real threat. They have some good wide receivers even beyond that. They haven't gotten Cooper Cup going recently. We'll see if they have the ability to change that. This specific matchup, though, as it pertains to what you guys can present, if they're putting two wide receivers out there, I know you feel extremely confident as far as the quarterback matchups are concerned, even as good as Puka certainly is. The question is going to come down to obviously your defense did lose N'Kobe Dean coming into this game. Putting Burks, what it seems like is going to be the guy that's going to be inserted. I don't know if it's going to be him or Trotter, but I do expect it to be Burks. Talk to me about filling in that role for N'Kobe Dean, making sure that that hole is covered moving forward, and specifically how you want to get after this Rams offense with, I assume, starting with your elite defensive line.
Yeah, I mean the defensive line they're gonna get after one way or another. One thing I'm really impressed by is there was a quote at the end of the last year where Josh West said that we weren't rushing for each other when he spoke about the defensive line, which in all was a target at Hassan Reddick. This this defensive line, like the way I look at it is like they're playing basketball together. Jalen Carter will rush up the middle and he'll force a QB to go either Josh Sweat's direction or Bryce Huff or even Nolan Smith who's broken out. And they
Mhm.
actually they do this in tandem a lot, and it's been so lucrative for their success. Um, no, Kobe Dean is irreplaceable in my opinion. He had a great year. You can't take that away from him. But Zach Bond, I feel like is more than prepared. And the good thing about Fangio's defense is that it's a Swiss Army knife after the defensive line. You can put an Oren Burks in there, right? You could put Trout Jr., who I feel like is gonna have a little bit more playing time than Burks for some weird reason. Fangio said, the future is now when it comes to Trout Jr. But you have Cooper DeJean. Like they've used Coop a lot in different sets, and they've gotten really creative with him. The good thing about it is like not only you have Cooper DeJean, you have Isaiah Rogers if you want to get real creative and have more DBs out there than linebackers. You'll see sometimes as well. Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith will actually bounce back to for pass coverage. Plays things that
Mhm.
sort. So like this, you would think it's a huge loss, and it really is. But Vic Fangio will find a way to disguise the loss. He'll find a way to manipulate the offense and to think that they have an advantage when all they're just falling into the trap of what Fangio's setting up. And again, this is not a knock on what the Rams do, because I think the world of McVay. I think the world of Cooper Kupp and Matt Stafford, like these guys are going to be legends at the end of their tenures. But Fangio is just he's always like 5 steps ahead, and you'll never see it coming. At this defense, at the beginning of the season, I said they were going to be the weakness of the team. They carry this team throughout the whole season. But you're going to see a lot of different looks. You're going to see a lot of creative looks. You're going to see a lot of DBs out there at times. I think Zach Bond is very very well suited to actually have the green sticker on his helmet and lead the way. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if you see actually a Nolan Smith back there, or Josh Sweat at times, and just different looks at going after the Rams offense.
Yeah, look, and that's the thing that it comes down to when you're dealing with a guy as good as a head coach and offensive play designer as Sean McVay, and a quarterback that's as veteran savvy and just flat out as talented as Matthew Stafford. You cannot give them the same look. You have to be able to switch up those things as well. And honestly, if there were other defense that we were talking about, other mentalities specifically as far as the DB room is concerned, then I'd say you're putting a little bit lighter bodies out there. It could be an issue. Your group plays with such physicality that I think that you guys can be able to live in that world and be able to attack what is a Rams offense that is going to try and get the run game established, obviously, early on, whether it is obviously with the wide receivers they believe in the blocking game, but specifically to make sure they can create those mismatches. But your DBs play with a mentality that they go out there like their linebackers to go out there and hit people as far as the run game is concerned and blow up some of those blocks, make sure those gaps are not open.
Yeah, they're nasty, and I mean, one thing to take note is Cooper DeJean, I think, only allowed 11 receiving yards against him in the last matchup against the Rams. Quinion Mitchell, I think, was
Mhm.
38 yards. I'm not sure if Slay missed that matchup. I think he may have been injured, if I have to look back at that. But those two alone, I mean, to only allow what's what, like 49 yards, it's again, it's a head scratcher. That's how good these
It's
guys
tough.
are.
Absolutely. It's tough to deal with it. And I'll get into my X factor as we get a little bit later on. But I do want to flip sides of the ball as far as the Eagles offense versus the Rams defense. And so I want to start out just by asking you, because this was a lot of the conversation we got into a little bit earlier on. People concerned about the passing game. And me personally, when I was watching that game, I was sitting there, I was like, I see why people would look at the raw stats and be concerned, but the Eagles had a stranglehold on that game versus the Packers. The way that you guys were able to dominate on the ground, obviously the Eagles defense was handling its business on the other side. I was like, I don't think there was really any need to push it from a passing game perspective, so I'm not worried about it. The question that I have for you is, it is supposed to be ugly as far as the weather is concerned. This is a game in which you would say, let's lean on our run game. We know that we have an advantage in being able to push those guys around on the other side. Do you feel like there's a need to get the pass game in some type of rhythm, given, and again, I know this is looking ahead, what the next matchup could look like on the road in Detroit?
I'm gonna regret saying this, but no.
Mhm.
And it's weird because I've been saying the opposite all year. Um, but they don't need to. Like it's when they got when the Eagles coaching staff realized that the defense had the Packers on lock, they got
They
conservative
just
on
said,
offense.
yeah.
They
Hmm.
knew what they were doing. They knew that they could turn it up at any point. I mean, Jalen, when he needed to, he scored. Like they made things happen when they needed to. And it's just been a weird thing. Like it's not like they played down to their opponents, but Nick Sirianni, if you ask him any questions about play calling after the game, or even like in the middle of the week, he'll say, I don't want to reveal any information. And I feel like he takes that approach on the field as well. If he sees this team is playing poor, that they're playing, they're like, okay, like let's dumb it down a little bit. Let's get Saquon in open space. Like let's get these plays going here and there. Um, I think you can get the passing game going. You could get some slants going, right? Early on, just to create more holes for Saquon. But at the end of the day, it's just they could give a damn what I think and what I say. Like they're gonna do whatever the hell they want to do, and it works. Like it just works. This isn't like the Carson Wentz and Nick Foles day where you had to rely on the passing. This isn't 2022 where you had to rely on the passing. You have Saquon Barkley back there who gives you everything you need and always finds a way to create big plays. And it's just one of those things where if you find a weakness, they're gonna find a strength somewhere else. And they don't need the passing game to be in rhythm if they go to Detroit or if they host the Commanders. It's one way or another they're gonna find a way to win, and that's who they are.
Mm-hmm. I completely understand the confidence. They've certainly earned it throughout the entirety of this year as well. And look, when you're talking about the conundrum that is facing the Eagles offense, specifically the Rams defense likes to play those kind of split safety shells. Ultimately, if you do that, you're going to have a field day on the ground. There's just no good answer from that perspective. So you're going to have to bring some safeties down in the box and be able to try and put those extra guys out there. Now, look, even if you do that, you still might get pushed around, but at least you have a fighting chance in that aspect as well. The question is going to be how often can you do that, and will Jalen Hurts in that passing game make you pay? Devontae Smith, AJ Brown are the guys that you're not going to live one-on-one with for long before they end up burning you as well on a consistent basis. So that is going to be a consistent problem that people are going to have to solve. I don't really see a great way for the Rams to do so, but I wouldn't be surprised. The weather is ugly. They choose a lesser of two evils and say, hey, we're going to have to try and force them to pass the ball to win this game. Of course, that does matter, or it should say it'll be a moot point if their offense doesn't actually produce anything versus the Eagles' defense, like the Packers struggled with too.
And it's tough to do that, right? Because now you got to factor in it's a snow game, right? RPO. Is Jalen going to run? Like it's just one of those things where they could punch you in the mouth at any point, and you won't see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, all the conflict that they can put edges into. I mean, obviously, this is a young front for the Rams, and that includes obviously their second level as well. If you are caught looking the wrong way in any type, like Saquon, we know is going to go for anything. Yeah. Jalen Hurts can take it, and if they get you on one of those slants, those guys aren't slowing down until they reach the end zone either. So all of those things come into it as a big issue from that perspective as well. So we're going to move on as far as the best bets are concerned for this game coming up. Brian, what are you looking at as far as the Eagles' attack is concerned to see if they, what is one thing that you feel like is going to be the driving engine here? I have a feeling what it's going to be, but you go ahead and tell me what your best bet is for this Rams-Eagles matchup.
It's one name, man, Saquon Barkley, and it's again, like they go as far as he goes. He's fresh, and he's motivated. He won his first playoff game. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that was his first playoff win. But this team is about their business right now, especially the offensive line. I spoke to Mekhi Becton in the locker room, and I was trying to get a little bit more out of him. And I was asking him, like, hey, how do you feel winning your first playoff game? And his answers shocked me, like, to the point where I had no idea how to follow up. And he was kind of like, it was good, it was great, but we're not done yet. Like, we still got business to handle. And it was just serious about it. I'm like, okay, like, this team is focused. And if it's the offensive line that's extremely focused, those guys love to get out and just hit people. And you're talking about getting out in the run game in the snow. Oh God, it could be a long day. But to me, this is the focal point is going to be Saquon and Jalen again. Jalen did get out a couple of runs against the Packers. He broke one free where I feel like if he actually turned the Jets on a little bit more, he would have scored. But if the RPO is just in sync as it usually is, it'll be a long day. But I think it's Saquon, it's Jalen. Those guys using their feet will create a lot of issues for the Rams defense.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, I'll be honest with you guys, it's kind of difficult to find the best one because I do think the Eagles are going to have a stranglehold on this matchup. But Tyler Higbee is going to be the look because I do think they're going to have to try and create some conflict as far as the linebackers at the second level. And that is their best chance as far as moving the ball through the air. I think you're going to see these cornerbacks from the Eagles key in on Puka Nacua. think they're going to bet that Cooper Cup is going to end up beating him in one-on-one coverage because they feel like they haven't necessarily seen it a lot recently as well. And the bet that they'll be comfortable against the other wide receivers. Tyler Higbee has to be somebody that they can use in the passing game. And obviously, Matthew Stafford was able to use him versus the Vikings as well. So that would be my best look as far as this game is concerned as well moving forward. Now, before we get to the game picks and X factors, I mean, we're both going to be on the same side from that perspective. I did want to ask you two kind of questions, and one leads into the other, but specifically coming off of last year, the retirement of Jason Kelsey, and kind of looking at what the interior of this offensive line looks like, specifically from a leadership perspective. Talk a little bit about being around the team and kind of seeing how those guys interact, what that room looks like, and specifically how impressed you've been at how they've still been able to maintain an elite level of play. Because I've always said that Jason Kelsey is somebody that I admired as a football fan, being undersized as a center, but also being able to be such a creative player because of what he allowed the Eagles' run game to look like over the years. Being able to replace that guy from a leadership and then also scheme perspective, what have you seen as far as that offensive line group you guys have in Philly?
I think you're seeing Jordan Mailata step up a lot. He's been the heartbeat of the offensive line and an incredible story on his front. But Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, those guys are just like they're the pillars of the offensive line. And ironically, they're both on both sides of the ball. But they've really, you've seen Jalen Hurts step up a lot. You've seen them buy into more of what Jalen Hurts is doing, and it's in the beginning of the season, there was all that talk where Nick Sirianni should be fired. They're 2-2, and Saquon said it best. He's like, there's panic. You guys are panicking out there. To us, we're good. Like, this is preseason. We're gonna get back, and they got back to it. But I just think you're seeing a lot of Jalen's demeanor all over the locker room. Like, just the business outlook. Like, yeah, we won. Let's celebrate a little bit. Let's joke around. But like, we have business to handle. Like, this job is not done from top to bottom. And, Nolan Smith, like, he was talking about, I shouldn't be here. I should be working in the ports in Georgia. And you're like, this guy's eating up on the field. Like, what do you mean? You were a first round pick. Jalen Carter, by far one of my favorite guys to talk to. Super, super, super kind guy. And he's very, very smart as well, detail oriented when he speaks to him. His growth in this defensive line, in this defensive group, his leadership, like, this kid could end up being one of the guys that you speak about on the same lines as Aaron Donald. Like, ironically, they're facing the Rams, but like, this kid is just that special. So you're seeing a lot of young guys step up, and it's good for the Eagles' future because it just shows that they're going to be good for years to come.
Yeah, so kind of along those lines, it leads into my second question is there's, the conversations that, I've had with Eagles fans and their feelings around Nick Sirianni kind of change week to week as far as things are concerned from that perspective. As you get deeper into the playoffs, and I don't think it necessarily will manifest this time, where do you feel like the confidence? I know the confidence level within that room is extremely high, Nick Sirianni. There's no questioning that. But as far as like as people around the team, fans of the team, the idea that Nick Sirianni and his leadership within the team, how do you feel like the story around Nick Sirianni has been shaped? Do you feel like it's too much misinformation because of what's in that room? Like, how do you feel about that as somebody that's around the team constantly?
Damn, you're gonna get me in trouble.
Sorry. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, you're good. So I called for Nick Sirianni to be fired at the end of last year. I called for him to even be fired at the beginning of the season. And it wasn't so much like the X's and O stuff. It was more so like, I hated the bro version of Nick Sirianni. You get me? Like, if you're the head coach of a team, you're a leader. You're at the face, you're the face of the franchise. I don't need you to put your arm around me and be my bro. What I didn't understand, though, is that version of Nick Sirianni was more so kind of like a father figure in that locker room. It wasn't like a bro figure like how we see it. Like, he seems like the cool guy, that wants to fit in. No, in that locker room, he's respected enough where it's like he's the guy, and they know it. Everybody knows it in that locker room. They buy into it. They don't give a damn what the media says. They don't care about my thoughts. They don't care about anybody else's thoughts around it. They know who they're riding with, and Nick has the buy-in of everybody from top to bottom. Sure, he does have moments where he's yelling at somebody on the sidelines, whether it's a fan or a player, but he does it because it's that competitive spirit. I mean, growing up, I played basketball, and if somebody was off or somebody felt like they weren't enough, the leader in me would want to motivate them, like, no, like you got this, like let's go handle business. That's who Nick is. Nick is the guy that's gonna walk with you through the fire and step on the fire with you. He's not gonna tell you to go do something. He's not a delegator. He's the guy that goes into the trenches with you, and I feel like that is what stands out with this unit this year is that inside the locker room, the buy-in is all there. Outside the locker room, the media is still trying to create some kind of rift with him. They're trying to create, he's on a hot seat. His seat is nowhere near hot. The guy's sitting tall, and I respect it. I told my guys I'm willing to eat crow, for him to succeed, just because I never understood it, but now I get it. Like he's that guy that in front of everybody, from even Saquon to any of the new guys, he's that guy.
Yeah, look, I completely understand it, and that's why I wanted to ask you somebody that was around the team and can get a little bit of pulse from that perspective because I feel like the outside noise does sound like that a lot, but you don't have a team that plays at this level that buys into this level if they don't respect the head coach. And obviously, the way that he is able to run it does have that level of cachet within the locker room ultimately. So obviously, we're going to be on both sides of this. We both think that the Eagles are going to win. I'm going to say my X factor personally is N'Kobe Dean, or not N'Kobe Dean, Jesus, is Nolan Smith. I really loved what I saw on tape from Nolan Smith. He was really strong at the point of attack versus the Packers, was able to make it incredibly difficult for them to get their run game going. And obviously, we saw what he was able to do getting after Jordan Love. So I was impressed by what he brought to the table. I think he can have a similar impact in this game versus the Rams. You mentioned a lot of guys. Obviously, the headline is Saquon, Jalen Carter, obviously Jalen Hurts, AJ, etc. Are there anybody kind of as far as an unheralded name that people may not be talking about a lot that you think can have an impact in this specific game and moving forward as well?
I have two of them. One it might be a little bit more popular than the other. Cooper DeJean for a fact. Just because he's gonna be the guy everywhere, and I feel like he's still out for respect, even though the kid is nasty with everything he does. But another guy's gonna be C.J. Gardner Johnson that nobody speaks about. Probably the most important addition to this defense that nobody talks about from leadership standpoint, from a vibe standpoint, from a motivational standpoint. The guy talks smack on every single play, and he's the he's the attitude that this defense needed, and he's willing to take a punch here and there. He doesn't give a damn. Like as long as he puts his guys in position to succeed, but he's getting into his groove right now at the perfect time, and I'm expecting to see good center field play from him, especially in the snow against his Rams offense. But I think he's going to be a huge X factor for this defense.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't be surprised. And like you said, he brings that attitude. He talks smack the entirety of the game, and he definitely backs it up with the level of play that he brings as well. And look, in my opinion, if you don't have a defense that is going to take the fight to teams on a consistent basis, you need those types of guys, not on the front, but also on the back end, because that's the level of physicality you got to have on a consistent basis. So
Mhm.
shout out to Chauncey Gardner Johnson, man, always making an impact from that perspective. I like those two picks on your end too. Look, that's all I got for this specific matchup. Once again, Brian, thank you so much for coming on. Make sure you guys check out Philadelphia Sports Network, always doing great work. I'm really excited to watch this game, see another, classic Saquon performance. I love watching that man run the football, I'll tell you that much. Brian, anything before we go ahead and get on out of here?
No, man. Listen, I appreciate you for having me on. Definitely, if you guys are on, I hate calling it X, but if you're on X, formerly known as Twitter, my my handle is at bcameronpsn. It should be a good game. It's the whole weekend should be full of great games. You have Ravens, Bills, Chiefs, Texans, um, Detroit, and Washington. I'm praying Washington wins. I need another Philly game. But yeah, listen, I appreciate you having me on, man. Looking forward to speaking again in the future, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Absolutely. Hope you have a great weekend too. Like you said, it's a great weekend of football. Obviously, all four of those games. We got the college football championship on Monday. I'm looking forward to it, man. Once again, thank you for coming on. Thank you guys for coming by to watch Max Marquee matchup, man. Till next time, I'm DMac Wake. Peace out.